What's up, folks? I'm Ed, and I'm Ed, and you're watching Talking with Myself. Good morning. What's up, people? Welcome to another episode of Talking with Myself, episode 4. Today we talk about the NFL Week 18, the Damar Hamlin situation, and the playoffs going forward, right here on Talking with Myself. All right, so I guess the first thing we're going to talk about this morning is what happened Monday night with Damar Hamlin on national TV in front of a national audience, and it was just such a strange, eerie, unknowing situation, and no one knew what was going on. It took so long to get information. It was just crazy. So I guess first, Ed, I want to ask you, how do you think that affects everyone going forward? But first of all, I want to say, thankful for the progress and improvements with Damar Hamlin's situation. He's doing much better. I mean, really good week. After a couple of days went by, there's been a lot of progress. So I'm super thankful that he's, doing so much better. So that definitely changes the situation, because how everyone was going to deal with it was going to be based on what they knew. And after a while, they didn't know much, like you mentioned before. But now, since we know more about what happened, we know more about how he's doing, that really helps everyone go forward in a much better way. But I also want to mention that, it was a Buffalo Bills player, and all the teammates are obviously, crushed and, really concerned about the situation. But there's also other players that have played with him or know him. There's other coaches who have coached him. And there's the other team across the way, which is Cincinnati Bengals. And, they were there for the whole event. So it affects them too. And also, obviously, there's playoff implications from this game not being played and things like that. But, I mean, I think it's kind of hard to go from not thinking about football and just thinking about Damar Hamlin and his situation, and then to think about the fact that this is our job, this is the league, and we have to play another game, coming up this weekend. So I think that, I don't know, it's a situation that hasn't been dealt with very often. That one was definitely a rare occurrence, to have a guy getting CPR on the field and not know for a few days if he would live. And it was crazy, but the support that everyone has been given, the fans, the teammates, other players in the league, has been really wonderful. And it's great to see that people came together for this situation. There was also some, negativity out there and comments that were made. Come on, man. And threats against T. Higgins and his family, which is ridiculous. It was a routine play. So, that's how I feel about that. Do you think that the NFL did the right thing with that? What do you think about the complaints about how the NFL handled the situation? Oh, as far as how the NFL handled it, I think they did fine. I mean, there was that whole 5-minute thing that came up. There's some different stories about where that came from. And honestly, keep in mind, no one knew what was going on yet. So in some situations similar, where there's an injury and a guy gets taken off the field, you have a little period to calm down, get your act together, and go back on the field. So that's not super uncommon, given the situation that they didn't know what was going on. And then there was some talk about, it took them an hour to cancel the game. We all knew that game wasn't going to get played. We all knew that they weren't going to play that night. And I knew right away they weren't going to play that game this week. I knew it wasn't going to get played in Week 18 for sure. There was no way those two teams could have met across the line of scrimmage and played football again this soon. And as far as taking an hour to announce the postponement of the game, there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that's going on to take care of. They were on the phone with the coaching staff in different situations, and there's just a lot of things. There's a lot of people involved with putting on an NFL broadcast, So it was a matter of, like I said, we all knew the game was going to get postponed, but they weren't going to play it again that night. That was a given. So even if he had given a thumbs up on the way out, I'm still not sure they could have played that game the way things went, So I don't really have any problem with the way the NFL handled the situation, even to this point right now, with the playoff seeding and all that. I mean, this is a difficult situation to be in. It's not something you see very often. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes to take care of that kind of stuff. Right. And obviously we have a big Week 18 here. There's a lot of things going on. Obviously there's some games where there's not much to play for or anything. Some games, you got to win, but then hope someone else loses, situations like that. Otherwise, it's about the seeding, who's going to play who, etc. So there is a lot of important football going on this weekend with Week 18, and some players aren't going to play. Some teams aren't going to play starters. Some teams have their second or third string quarterback coming in. It's just so interesting. So what do you think, Ed, going forward, how the playoffs will play out with the whole situation of what happened this week and just in general? Well, obviously they're talking about with the seating situation because obviously that Buffalo Cincy game was a big game as far as the structure of the playoffs and going into Week 18. So, the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Bills are all involved in this little tug of war thing here, and it kind of depends on who wins this weekend, obviously. But, there was talk about if you end up being the number one seed coming out of Week 18, despite the fact that that game wasn't played, you would make a choice between home field or the bye week, and whatever you don't choose, the other team gets. So, to put some fairness in it, there's no way in this situation to please everybody because what happened was unprecedented. And really, when you think about it, it doesn't matter. Damar Hamlin had a cardiac arrest situation where he had to have CPR on the field, and that is what is important. We're playing a football game here. Yeah, that's awesome. That's their job. We all like to watch. It's a big deal, for sure. And the playoffs are super important. Get to the Super Bowl, get a Lombardi. I get all that. But really, this year, would you want to be the guy that stood up and complained about how the NFL did the seating and who had home field and who didn't? And because you had to play a neutral site game, perhaps? Come on, man. I don't want to be the guy that is the one complaining about that because it's not really about us. It's about Damar. Yeah, it's really cool that they do so many division matchups in the last week of the season. It's very cool. I was talking to Tommy the other day about maybe they should have us play our division people 3 times. So imagine the Cowboys and the Eagles playing 3 times a year. It would certainly be very cool to have Cowboys and Eagles 3 times a year, but that'll probably never happen. But yeah, to have the division games be 3 times a year would be pretty cool. And I do like, like you said, how they play a lot of division things, matchups at the end of the year, like some of the ones we have this weekend, like Cincinnati and Baltimore, for example, stuff like that. The Giants and the Commanders, stuff like that is pretty cool. Well, look, here's what I'm going to tell you, okay? The fact of the matter is this. The Buffalo Bills are an inspired team. Not only did they have the Damar Hamlin situation, which, like I said, thank God he's doing so much better. That definitely makes a difference on this team to have the ability. They had a team meeting the other day, which they kind of delayed and finally had it. And Coach had Damar on the teleconference, and he got to speak to the team and back and forth, and he got to say, "I love you" to the guys, which was a big deal. And they all stood up and cheered. That was a major moment in the Buffalo Bills season. So they also had their radio announcer suffered a stroke. So he's back at home recovering. So well wishes and prayers for him as well. So this team has a lot to be motivated by. So I really think that you got to watch the Buffalo Bills because not only were they that close, an arrowhead away, right, from playing the Super Bowl last year, they are a really good team. And they are motivated now more than ever. And they're still a very good team. Josh Allen and that crew, the coaching staff, everybody. And that's top to bottom, that's a great team. So when you take a great team and you give them added fuel, extra motivation, that's dangerous. So I also know, though, that it doesn't mean for sure that it's going to happen as far as the success that you're looking for. But I do think that when you look at Buffalo, Kansas City, and Cincinnati, the question would become, can Buffalo beat both of those teams? And the answer is clearly yes, but it doesn't mean they will. So I think you really got to watch out for that because they're highly motivated. And, it takes me back to this, okay? Almost every year there's a story about, the magic or the aura of a team, and this is their year, and this is the story, and you think back when the Patriots beat the Rams on a field goal after 9/11, right? So it was the Patriots, right? So that makes sense, doesn't it? for team intros or, player intros, they came out as a team, one unit. It came out to the field after 9/11 to represent the togetherness and unity, and they won the Super Bowl. So in the last 2 years, we had a home team win the Super Bowl, which had never happened before. So I do think the magic is there, and it looks to me that it very well could be drawn up now with the events that have unfolded in this past week, that Buffalo makes it all the way to the Lombardi. All right, thanks, man. Appreciate you joining me today. Well, folks, that's it for this episode 4 of Talking with Myself. A lot of good football coming up. The playoffs are right around the corner, and we'll see what we got in store for you then. So thanks for watching Talking with Myself.